Welcome to The First Turn. I'm your host, Hyena, and today, Llama and I are talking about This Week in Warhammer. If you like what you hear, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. Alright, let's get to it. Welcome to The First Turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
This weekend, we are talking about LVO. LVO tournament standings, LVO tournament results, kind of. Tournament turnout. We're talking, we're not at LVO, but we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
It is the one of the four horsemen of the U.S. gaming circuit.
If you're a sports fan like tennis or golf, it's one of the four majors. It's one of the four biggest events that everyone wants to get to during the year in North America.
For miniatures.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are specific tournaments for specific companies that run specific games. Like I'm sure Corvus Belli has their own thing that they do Infinity tournaments at, similar to Games Workshop's, U.S. Opens.
Yep.
So this is in terms of just like general conventions of miniatures, this is one of the big four.
One of the big ones.
So starting off right, we had a preview event for Games Workshop that we watched live, and we tried to share
with you guys.
But I'm unsure of whether it was technical difficulties or we had been taken down.
In case we may have violated
our massive following, got us in trouble.
Yeah.
I might have gotten taken down because we were. I was trying to sneakily stream a little bit of Twitch on YouTube, so
they might not like that.
That might have been my fault.
Yeah,
but we had a lot of colorful commentary. You would have loved it. You would have had a blast. We were very engaging and entertaining the entire time,
all the way through.
Maybe the most entertaining we've ever been.
Yeah, and we know we covered everybody's possible opinion.
Babies were laughing. Yeah. Women were crying.
Yeah. Just nothing like it.
The sun was weeping tears.
It's one of those dates that people will remember.
Where
were you when Llama and Hyena live streamed the LVO?
Yeah, they would have made a holiday. They would have named a holiday after it. Mm-hmm. It was a thing of wonder. Pulitzer Prize winning.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing? Is Pulitzer's Prize still a thing?
They still do it.
It's like a journalism
it's not
thing?
televised. I mean, it would probably get more viewers than the Oscars. Yeah. But for those who did see the miniatures they revealed were obviously great. I mean, just a home run.
So I think it started great. I think it ended great. The middle was middling, right?
Yeah.
So we started with AOS, which was the Soulblight Gravelords Death Rattle, their Barrow section.
And what I think the model of the entire event was the surprisingly good. What's his name? Vordry?
Prince Vordry. Yeah.
Prince Vordry on the giant undead dragon.
Yeah.
Incredible piece.
Oh, amazing.
That one I'm seeing people post everywhere.
There was actually quite a bit that didn't feature in the stream that was released that weekend too, or revealed this weekend too. You had the Bray Shaman for
Beastmen in the Old World.
Beastmen, was revealed on the article, but not in the stream. I don't know why that was cut. Same with the new Vampire Lord on Nightmare.
For the same army that was featured.
Right.
Yeah, they just whoops, we didn't show you
that
this.
model. But it was showed off in the article. Two different kind of like loadouts, poses, whatever for the same kit. They also had the Thanatar. Domitar? It was the Domitar.
Yeah.
The big
Thanatar class.
Thanatar class.
With a different weapon loadout.
Yeah. So it's got like a knuckle fist thing, plus the bright lance, dark lance, whatever. Basically, a giant las cannon on his shoulder
for the Mechanicum side of 30K.
Yep. And now they've got kits of that already. It's just not that weapon loadout.
Nope.
So I mean, less exciting, especially because they had it in resin.
I think 30K is an inferior year to 40K. But I appreciate what it's done for the history of the setting.
Yeah. I got mixed feelings on it, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But I think the Vampires definitely stole it because we also saw for 40K we had pretty much an army box starter set for Emperor's Children, which featured 2 characters, some of their heavy weapon teams, some of their normal scout /
their elite
normal I don't know,
3-man blade unit.
Yeah, they had a 3-man blade master unit plus their normal legionnaires that are sneaky and fast. So super cool to see that. I mean, we knew that was coming. by the sheer fact that we'd already gotten
Cads and Fulgrim.
Fulgrim shut off. It didn't disappoint. I love the art style they locked in. It's what we were saying in our stream. It was very Hedonites of Slaanesh from AOS.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of inspiration from that. A lot of the taut skin pulled back into, Slaaneshi sigils and that kind of thing. Super cool, fitting,
and I think they lean,
great.
and I think they even lean into the elements of excess without the like nerd trope of like we just have to put boobs everywhere.
Yep.
It still very much looks hedonistic, and yet disturbing. But they just have almost no limitation to what they can design in their models now, and they even showed off that classic artwork. I don't remember if that's an Adrian Wood piece or whose that is, of the Slaanesh Marine,
right,
which was around a long time ago, but it still stands up. And the models kind of have those features in them, like those details. So, the Lucius was a good one for me. Yep. I really liked that
Definitely
one.
a step up from the previous 20-year-old model, whatever it was. But yeah, so I'm super excited. We got some roadmaps for every game. Love to see that. Warcry was missing and was not talked about at all.
Yeah,
which leads us to kind of believe
not even mentioned by name.
I mean, even people in the chat were like, "Hey, what about Warcry?" I mean, the thing is pre-recorded, so there's no responding to the chat anymore.
Right.
But yeah, Warcry. I mean, even when they were talking about all their different product lines, that one was not even touched. Disappointing.
Yeah,
but we had theories on that. We were thinking that perhaps there were other plans for that, if not that game by name, maybe that slot, right? Filling that slot with something else that's maybe another skirmishy fantasy game, something more robust than Warcry, because Warcry feels very. I mean, there's a little bit of list building to it, but there's really no like weapon options. There's no advancements. I mean, I guess if you play a campaign, you could track your losses. But
right, but it doesn't even do if you take Necromunda or you take Mordheim or you take Gorka Morka, those types of games all had like an RPG element, and so there was progress, and you could lose guys and buy new guys and upgrade guys,
right.
and Warcry had the rules that were simple like those games, but no real RPG element like that unless you made one up.
Right.
And so we've theorized now for a few episodes that they might just be back to the drawing board with it, because it is a bunch of new models and it's always in a cool setting. So right. I don't think they're just going to scrap it.
Because you could absolutely have the simple like Warcry list building style with just base stat lines, right? Because like if you draw up a new like 1,000 credit Necromunda gang, the guys don't have any upgrades. They're all very basic. They have set stat lines to start with, right? And so you could have your tournament style, whatever, bring 1,000-point list of just this new game, if there is a new game, and just play with that. No advancements necessary. No tracking necessary.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you could expand on it by also having a system that lets you do the campaign elements to it and lets those starting stat lines get better. Akin to a Mordheim. I mean, people love that shit. You know,
do.
Like it's
fans
so much fun.
Fans kept Mordheim going.
Yeah, even now I think.
And even Necromunda, because I remember a buddy of ours who doesn't come around as much now, but Necromunda had long been all the specialist games GW had just stopped supporting, but Necromunda still had a base rule book, and there were people on the internet who kept its rules going in spirit until GW launched this version.
There was like a community version, like PDF on it that was kept online, and people still used it with improvements, balancing and stuff, which was impressive. That it was going on for like 20 years beyond when it was cut. New Necromunda definitely goes far above and beyond that. There's a lot of new stuff for it for sure.
They keep that game pretty regularly updated.
The Ash Wastes, I think, is a really interesting direction to have taken it. We did get some updates to the launch faction for the Ash Wastes season, which were the Ash Waste Nomads. They got themselves an elites box basically that expanded on their army, which neat.
Well, and so even there, I feel like that they were trying to parallel Necromunda with Warcry, because they did that for Warcry already, where it was like, well, how do we expand beyond just this one? It was like, well, we'll pick a new place, and then every faction that comes out during that will have new aesthetic, and there'll be a book that adds new rules.
Yeah.
They just did everything except the leveling up or the progression of your warband. And
now But like in Necromunda, you can. So I mean, that's again the parallels are there, and it's like, well, you've got your precedent, you got your blueprint. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, they just need to dig in, and
I'd love to see them expand on that, and maybe even bring back some of those Warcry warbands as like gangers for this new game. Rebox them and bring them out again. Be awesome. But all of the things we saw basically were great.
Yeah.
Some of the things like the Black Library things were a little like a little breath of like a pause in the middle.
Yep.
Because whatever. But it didn't disappoint this year round.
No.
We expect there's a lot more coming.
Yeah.
Mostly because we do have another preview here in just a couple months.
Yeah.
Because
Adepticon's
right around the corner. So even if they had more locked and ready to go, they couldn't show it all here. Because it's like, very soon there's going to be more reveals.
So it was funny is one of the last ones we complained that they didn't give us much of a roadmap, or it was very vague, and this one they did the opposite. It was like, so here's the stuff.
Here's the next 7
Here's
factions.
the stuff you know.
Yeah.
By the way, here's the next 3, and then here's hints at the next 4
right
after that. And so it was like on the 40K side, it's like, well, all the mono deity cast factions are coming out this year. And they even showed off a new character for Death Guard.
Yep.
Which they revealed later on the website.
Again, wasn't in the preview. It was on the website later.
And I really dig that. It's very simple, but really neat. And then they were like, and here's what else is coming. And it was like, well, now you have to kind of guess in the picture what it is. It was like, well, one of them looked like knights, and one of them looked like gray knights, and then one was a salamander.
Yeah. So from what I was seeing, it looked like it was gray knights. It looked like it was salamander, like Gravis armor.
Gravis armor with an ornate
Yep.
pattern on it. So I wonder if it's just like an elite unit.
And then the other one was
I thought one was like war dogs.
It looked like Black Templars to me.
Oh, yep.
It was like an axe, and it had that like so that cleft like kind of like filigree on the top, the cross. I think it was black. It was a Black Templar,
100%.
And then there was, I think very clearly it was Chaos Knights.
Yeah. It looked like a war dog.
And then what was the mystery thing was like a silhouette of a model.
Right.
Which maybe kind of looked like a Space Marine backpack of some kind, which doesn't tell us anything.
Nope.
Right? So
I thought, one axe maybe, or was there a Space Wolves looking axe on there?
No.
I might be thinking of the Black Templars
Black
thing.
Templar one. Yep.
And then on AOS they did the same thing. They were like, well, hey, here's the armies coming now.
Yep.
And then they're like, here's what's on the way, and it was what was coming down the road. Lumineth.
Yep.
Lumineth? No, Ideneth.
Ideneth, the fish people.
Yeah.
Ideneth was coming.
Yep. And then they showed what was Blades of Corn in one of the silhouettes.
Yeah, so they had 2 factions like showed like this is specifically what's coming.
Because we have the Auric Worklands and Gloomspite Gits are now
right. We know the Grave Lords are coming.
And Grave Lords, right. And then it was Ideneth and one other they showed for sure.
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, because there was 2 that they showed for sure. Let me pull that.
And I hope Ideneth get some juice.
I'd love it if they got more than just. Yeah.
Don't just give us another hero.
Just a hero. Because that's what they got last time. I'm tired of just a hero.
We know one of the silhouette pictures was Caradron's. We know one was Blades of Corn.
Yep.
One we suspected was Daughters of Cain.
I think it might be Flesh Eater Courts.
Or Flesh Eater Courts.
When I was looking at it again. Because it's kind of like a webbed sort of wing.
Mm-hmm. And then they gave us...
Okay, so I'll run through it real quick. Soulblight, Auric Worklands, Gloomspite Gits. Auric Worklands I think is next week. So it's here.
I think it's on pre-order.
It's here very soon.
Yeah.
And then there's a Path to Glory supplement coming out, which is a throwaway thing that shouldn't even been on that. That's the now. Coming next is Ideneth Deepkin and the Nighthaunt.
The Nighthaunt.
That's right.
Okay.
And then what is very clearly like the headdress of a Khorne warrior.
Yep.
So Blades of Khorne coming.
And we've had rumors about them for a while.
There's a piece of artwork where I believe it's like a ship, an airship being like grappled by like a dragon in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the like the Caradron book.
Yeah.
But I think this is a snippet, like a very small piece of that piece of artwork. So it's like this.
It definitely looks like a balloon.
This is a Caradron ship. Kind of their ethermatic balloon kind of things. And then the last one was like a wing that was like webbed, right? And so there's a few factions that have that. Daughters of Cain's one of them with their little Kennerai girls. But I think I think I can even picture the actual piece of artwork this is from, and I think it's one of the new Archregents.
Okay.
Or the Archduke. Whatever the new one is where he's actually got webbed, like big wings. He's holding like a set of keys.
Mm-hmm.
That guy. I think it's a piece of artwork of him. I think it's Flesh Eater Core.
And then they gave us a
very cryptic
teaser
sort of video. Yeah.
That we are hoping against hope is Malarian.
So there's, I mean, like, I've kind of like looked into it too much. Lots of zooming and enhancing, and I'm watching the video over and over and over and over again. I think it's one of two things. I think it's a very compelling argument that it could be Chaos Dwarves because of some of the things. But here's the weird part: is Chaos Dwarves and Dark Elves are so similar, and like now that might sound weird because it's like, well, you're clearly dwarven smiths worshiping chaos. The Dark Elves are kind of chaotic, right?
Right.
Back in the old world. Look at like Total War. They both deal with like a slave mechanic that they fuel their building and their construction stuff with, and their like economy is all fueled with slaves. And then there's lots of like chains and things like that involved with their iconography. Right. Well, there is some iconography that you can see kind of in the reflections of the green glowing eyes, which again, I don't think points to Hashit specifically. Lots of things have glowing green eyes. Yep. Malarian. I mean, the face and the eyes look very maybe like draconic to me. They don't scream bull. They don't scream Hashit to me. But there's kind of a crossed pupil in one of them, which could lead to being like like what. Goats have weird ass eyes.
Yes, they do.
So like weird shaped eyes kind of lean more into like cattle.
Well, and whatever they do for Hashit, here's the thing. I can guarantee there's going to be major surprises with the aesthetic because I don't think it's just going to revolve around Chaos Dwarves.
And you know what I hope? I hope it's not just the thing we're used to. The big, tall-hatted, spiky,
We're not in that world anymore, so no.
Like the
underbite, two
czars,
teeth, right?
Like I don't want that.
Look like the Burgermeister from the stop-motion Christmas cartoons.
Yeah. So I hope we don't get that, but I am hoping more that it is Malarian because, like I said, it looks more like a dragon to me. Green glowing eyes looks dark and shadowy. It doesn't seem
and we've had
chaos.
One piece of artwork of him before.
Yeah.
And so it could be.
I don't know. So we'll see. I think it's going to be one of those two things, though. I think it is legitimately.
It's a new army, I think.
New.
Yeah.
It would be a real slap in the face if it was more Stormcast. It'd be a slap in the face if it was like Lumineth, a new Lumineth temple of some kind. Opens. Because they have the water temple and the earth temple and the air temple and the fire temple, whatever. Like it'd be really silly if that kind of thing happened. But it could be like. I don't know. It could be something else for Slaves of Darkness. Maybe. It could be a lot of things. I think we're hoping that it's Chaos Dwarves because we know generally Chaos Dwarves are probably coming. I mean, we've got things on the maps for this new edition of Chaos Dwarf holds, things like that. So it's pretty likely they're coming at some point.
Well,
is this it? I don't know.
In the both an article and the Slaves to Darkness book, they talked about Hashit specifically, and so it just seems like they're preparing us for that.
Right. I mean, you had the Horns of Hashit Warband.
Yep.
You've got they might even repurpose some of the Beasts of Chaos endless spells for them. I think that'd be hilarious. Because one of them is just like a giant like fiery bull.
Yep.
I mean and
they're not using those in the old world, so
that's Hashit, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It was cryptic and weird and thought provoking. And I enjoy that.
And hopefully there's a payoff on like when they made it seem like the Spider Queen was going to be
right like
a player and then just went away.
So one of the previews they had at one year that was showing off like a war cry thing. It was the Varanite Mines, right? Because they had this like Spider Warband and some other warband. I can't remember who they were against. I wish I could remember. Doesn't matter. But they were teasing like, oh, these spider people are a sign of things to come. She stirs in the deeps.
Yep. They even hired some voice actors to do it.
And there was like a graphic for it where they were like panning over and they had weird noises in the background. And you're like, oh, what does that mean? Zero payoff. Nothing. They just scrapped it. What an unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you teased it. You might as well have just released it. Figured out a way to do it. Like that was silly.
And that makes me think like they never even had it in concept. They released the one unit for Warcry, and they might not have ever had artwork for her. They might not have ever had a CAD for her.
Maybe they came up with this thing. We're like, we got this really good idea. Make this like thing to tease it. And they're like, oh yeah, let's not do that.
We just never got around
to it. Yeah, really funny. But yeah, that's it was a good event. Pleased with everything. I'm definitely gonna have to get those skeletons because they looked pretty great. It was a replacement. The keyword now, instead of it being like grave, is it's barrow, right? So barrow is like a burial mound, right? And so you've got these skeletons that are more than just like, I'm a slave to a necromancer.
People who've read the Fellowship of the Ring book would be familiar with the Barrow Downs,
right?
And
exactly. Yep, not an unfamiliar concept. But generally, when you disturb the dead, you're not like angering a necromancer who's raising skeletal minions. It's more like there's a curse that brings the dead back to exact some sort of a grudge. Right, some kind of vengeance, and it sounds like that this subfaction of this army is going to operate very uniquely for Graveblight, Soulblight, Gravelords. There you go, where they'll have these barrow curses, and the leaders will be autonomous. They won't be just slaves, that kind of thing. Which I think is a good take on it. I think it's a good divergence from what they've previously done. Right, because if you just have mindless skeletal minions, people are going to think about Old World, right, and think of like, oh, this is how the necromancers and the vampires used to do it.
Yep.
It's like, but I want to move away from that because I don't want them to be like it was in the Old World.
Correct. I
want there to be more going on there, more things that are interesting going on there.
Well, and I think when they first branched into the Vrykos side, it was very different, and then now this is further separation. Well, and for a death faction, it's actually a pretty robust roster now with that expansion.
Well, think about when they did, because you've seen the Blood Bowl team called the Underworld Denizens, right?
Probably.
Okay. Well, there's some affiliations that are like mixes of armies and stuff like that. But anyway, the one of the sort of sub-factions that you could have in Blood Bowl is like the vampire side of stuff, but there's also it's not just vampires, it's also zombies and skeletons and ghosts and werewolves and just like all of the Halloween monsters, basically. Yeah. There's a bit I think one of their big guys is like a Frankenstein monster, like an animated construct human, amalgam. There has historically been more of that stuff in Warhammer and in the Old World than what they've kind of shown, right?
Yep.
And so bringing back some of that stuff would be super cool. I mean, like we said, we saw with the Vrykos Dynasty being sort of wolf-themed. They're not exactly werewolves, but they're wolfy. But we did see the Underworld's warbands, where one of them is literally a necromancer and their husband who turned into a wolf. He is a werewolf. There's a different one where a guy's literally got electrical diodes stuffed into his zombies' necks to be like Frankenstein monsters. They're getting into the weird, more than just I'm a guy who can control ghouls and ghosts and zombies and skeletons. Kill me and the entire army crumbles.
Right.
So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it's departed enough. So. This might sound petty, but I feel like the more they depart from Warhammer Fantasy, from the Old World, the better and the more I like AOS. And so that's why, I don't know, this expansion to that army, like I said, it gives them a pretty healthy roster now. And
I mean, not a lot's new, right? Black Knights are replaced with the Barrow Knights. Grave Guard are replaced with Barrow Guard.
Yep.
There's 2 new White Kings basically on horse. There is a new, I will say, vampire on skeletal steed that they haven't had in a long time. And there is a new vampire on a zombie dragon, which it sounds like the zombie dragon will be a new kit. Hopefully separate, but in addition to the old zombie dragon kit. So, I mean, it's more like they've got a very robust, updated roster now. Yep. That's what I like to see.
And further departed from...
Right. Yeah,
because nobody wanted to buy old shit.
Right. Because if they go to Cities of Sigmar and they say replace all the Dark Elf stuff with new Dark Elf stuff, but keep it in cities, you'd be like, boom, there we go, whole new army. Because it's like, I don't want to go buy old executioners and sorceress on dragon, because like those kits are old and crappy. Like they're just not. They're not up to the current standard.
Nope.
And so even if they kept those and updated them, it would feel like the army is brand new, even though it's just replacing kits.
Yeah. The less of it that's from before, the better. And that's and that they really did that with this army. And it sounds like Death is going to get quite a bit of love, at least in the first half of 2025. And then I don't know. And so going back to Hashut, I actually just don't. I don't even know if dwarves are going to be the majority of what that faction is.
Right? Wouldn't that be weird?
I think like the Horns of Hashut cultists we got, I think will make up a bunch of infantry, and then you might have monsters. Like Forge World took part in that faction, and almost. You had a couple units of dwarves, but the rest of it was like fire elementals and bull centaurs, and now they just might
and big war machines,
and they might just Sigmarize that and do something we're just not expecting.
Technically, some of that was made specifically for AOS.
Yeah,
think about that, because like it's Drazor the Ashen or whatever
survived. Yeah,
was an old world model, right? It was a weird bull demon with little wings.
A Taurus.
Smoking. I don't know, whatever it was. Technically, I don't know if he survived the destruction.
Yeah, I don't know.
They had ported him over for a while. But Shartor the Executioner, which was a bull Tauric bull centaur, was part of the AOS character series. Their one and only model that they came out with for the character series. And so that was a canonically AOS model for, what was it called? The Legions of Asgore.
Yeah.
So that... I think is promising, even though they got rid of that model, got rid of some of that stuff. It's still, I think, promising that like they have an idea of what they wanted to do already, probably for a long time. I mean, AOS is almost a decade old at this point, and it's been like 8 years, 9 years.
It's
now.
Like 2016.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So. And there's been rumors for a long time, and I imagine that was one like Skaven, like Bone Splitters, where they were like, do we send it back home or do we make a new one? And maybe now they're committing. The Horns of Hashut was a push in that direction. And like the Rotmire Creed, that's a kit that they can just move to AOS and say
easy.
There you go, free unit. But again, all of that from the preview event, and now we look forward even more to Adepticon, because I don't think there's going to be much overlap. I don't think they need to show us. Here's the preview for, say, Death Guard, when it's like, I think by showing us the one hero, we know they're getting a book and a model.
That's probably all Death Guard are getting, because they've got a pretty robust roster already. Like, sure, they could always use something else. I mean, just rolling in Chaos Demons into their army is going to make it feel like more of an army.
Yep.
Because, they didn't have that many kits. And if you roll in some of the ones from Chaos Space Marines specifically, it helps. But, you don't have your own Dreadnought. You don't have your own blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah, they have Plague Marines. They have two different kinds of Terminators. They have their heroes galore. They have their own tank.
Yeah. I guess they've got a decent number of vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah, they have the little
the drones, the blight drones.
Yeah,
and the little car.
It's a push fit one, which is funny.
Mephitic blight hauler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have the little helicopter one. Yeah. So book and a model is not surprising for that. And I feel like when they showed us those models, both the new Bray Shaman guy for Old World and then that hero, and then I'm like, I think that's all those armies are getting.
Yeah.
That's new. But I don't know. We'll see. I was trying to think of, because we always talk about in AOS, what army could use a great big expansion because it doesn't have enough.
Right.
I don't feel the same way about 40K, because most of those armies have been around so long that they've been expanded.
Except maybe Votann.
Well, they're brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Votann's new enough that their army's not wide.
No.
They could receive some love.
Yep.
But yeah, even any of the newer ones besides Votann are pretty wide rosters. I mean, Sisters.
Because Sisters got
a ton of stuff.
They got 2 editions in a row of pretty big releases.
Adeptus Mechanicus, like the Scutari that they were called initially, wide now. They've got flyers. They've got their own vehicles and transports.
They got their own cavalry.
They've got everything. Yeah. So it's like even some of the newer armies that have come out are
Gene
still
Stealer cults.
good. They've still got a lot. I mean, maybe they could use some stuff, but the fact that they can bring Tyranids and they can bring Brood Brothers makes it so that there's a lot of options there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
artificially expanding their roster. I mean, Knights is one of those ones where even though they've been around for a while, don't have a lot going on. Like you've got 2 kits for Imperial Knights. That's it. 3, I guess, because you get the bigger Knights. You've got 3 total kits that make all your different variants of everything.
Correct.
And so it's like, having to ally in agents of the Imperium in order to put boots on the ground. Maybe you can remedy that by giving them just like, here's some Knight faction soldiers that go in with the army.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't take much.
I also think Games Workshop's Games Workshop, and they're not going to be able to help themselves to design another Knight kit.
Oh, yeah.
And then they did make the plastic versions of the 30K, like the Acheron and whatever.
Yeah. I don't count those, though.
I don't either.
I think eventually we're going to see those disappear.
Well,
and go to Legends.
They do only have the Horus Heresy box packaging now.
But to be fair, if you want to buy a Greater Demon for 40K, you have to buy the AOS box.
They do have the AOS box.
So,
but they do put the 40K logo on.
I suppose. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's inconsistent. That's what I'm getting at.
If they don't put the 40K logo on it, should just stay out.
Yep. Just get out.
Just keep it out.
I think it's more interesting thinking about if they do what we were talking about before with Chaos Demons and they split them up, and then all of a sudden there's no undivided Chaos Demons. What happens with Be'lakor?
Right.
I still think that would be an interesting thing to think about is if Be'lakor disappears from 40K, because you've got things like Abaddon's Undivided. You've got his pet demon, not pet, but his ally Vashtor, who kind of replaces Be'lakor in a lot of ways. He's like Be'lakor but mechanical.
Right.
Undivided,
his own machinations, trying to kind of deify himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it fits more in with like, well, what is Chaos trying to do in 40K? What tools do they have to use to innovate and do new things? Well, they have technology and machines and stuff like that. AOS doesn't have that.
Well, and Bellacor's background has always been about like how he used to be the Ever Chosen, and in 40K there is no Ever Chosen. Like Abaddon is the
closest thing to that,
but he's not. This ascended Grand Marshal. He's like a warp. He's a warp vessel who has learned to resist any sort of demonhood, but he's also an Astartes, right. So he's a space marine,
which is basically, when you think about it, just human.
It's a modified human, and so like Bellacor's, I don't think Be'lakor feels like he's shunned by Abaddon and has to do. Whereas like Archaon is directly in AOS is directly the chosen, and so like Be'lakor hates him. Be'lakor's story is so much more richly tied to both fantasy and AOS than it is to 40K. So if they did that, where it's like, okay, well now these mono deity cast Space Marine factions have the demons rolled in, we don't need the Undivided, we're only losing a guy.
Right.
I think they'd be okay with it. Rip the Band-Aid.
I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be super cool. They just like done. I think it's gonna happen. I think it's a better than average chance of it happening.
It's not even a bad solution. I think it's clean, and it gives them room. I don't know if they have other projects to. I mean, by adding Emperor's Children, you're adding a 25th army.
Yep.
So you could just cut demons again, and then you're back to an even number. There you go. And all the and that's just it. With the exception of Be'lakor, who knows? They may just give him a standalone data sheet, or say he's a part of Chaos Space Marines, Undivided. You really aren't losing. They're not like squatting all the other models. All your demons are still playable somewhere.
There's no undivided demons in 40K at least.
They don't have.
I mean, you've got the Ruin Storm stuff from 30K, which were kind of undivided, just demons in general.
Yep.
But none of that carries over. There really isn't undivided anymore. Besides like 4 Space Marines. Yeah. Because like who's undivided? Who worships Chaos undivided? Nobody. Everyone dedicates themselves. Even most Space Marines dedicate themselves. So, yeah, get them out of here.
Get them out of here.
Kick it to the curb. Get it out. Separate it further.
Speaking of
kill the overlap,
the LVO tournament, which is huge, and it looked like some really good variety after today. Which, while we're recording this, is Saturday. Both AOS and 40K. Massive representation, 1,000 players in the 40K event, 300 plus players in the AOS event. and then the undefeated remaining armies on both sides, like huge variety of what's still there, which looks great for both games. Our own local shop was running its own little tournament today. Pretty good turnout. I don't know.
Spiritually involved.
Yep. I don't know if it was 3 rounds or 5. I didn't hang around enough to find out.
Usually when we do a 5-round, it's 2 days. Yeah. So if it was only today, I would assume it's just a 3-rounder, just to get people in playing.
There seemed like, I think 24 maybe people. It was really packed in the store because they also had a Chaos Draft Magic the Gathering. For those who don't know what that is, there's like a slew of legal sets that you get to pick your 3 draft packs from, and you get to make a deck. Hence Chaos. So every table was packed.
Right.
Every table was packed. But it was good to see. Had some locals and some travelers playing in the 40K there. So yeah, a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the weird thing living where we do is it's there's pockets of population, but if you want to get like an event going together, people have to come from kind of within a couple hours within the same state, the same region, in order to get enough. Like that's
well, because not even everybody local who plays will show.
Right.
So you end up with some people who drive from hours away.
Yep.
Wasn't all orange jerseys though. There weren't that many rolling 6s. It was some people I didn't recognize, but like we had some of the locals, like Rhino was playing, and I don't remember any of their names, but a little bit of everything. A lot of Necrons, a lot of Space Marines were popular.
Necrons seem pretty good right now. Even with some of the nerfs to the holiday detachment, it still seems really, really good. The holiday detachments, I think, we talked about that previously, but what a great way to inject some new life into the game. You know, between editions, between seasons, between
major
big
events,
updates.
even.
Yeah.
And Space Marines in general seem to have been given a lot of life, to the extent that commentary I was getting today from people, I should have recorded it. I was practically interviewing folks. Is everybody, including the tournament organizer, we're talking about it's weird because now regular Marines can kill stuff,
right?
Which has always been something that we've lamented about Marines, is they just suck on their own. And sure, there's specialist Marine units you'll play, or you'll find whatever divergent chapter has the most abusive rules, and so you technically are playing Marines. This is I watched someone take down a Doomsday Arc with regular Marines in combat.
Is that because the new Oath of the Moment?
Oath does a lot.
It gives rerolls, and then now it also adds to wound.
And the bolt rifles now, I don't remember which way they get it, but I think it can have twice as many shots as it did before.
Okay.
And so Marines just feel more Marine-y without them doing much to the stats directly.
Right.
Which I still think they could use, but Marines are playing well, and it seems like several varieties of them, though Blood Angels and Dark Angels are both very popular. And Ultramarines are
always
popular
for reasons we've discussed.
Yeah. Which makes me think, when we see that artwork and they show a salamander specifically,
what does that mean?
It wasn't just a Marine. It's so are they going to decide again that those first founding chapters maybe need their own stuff if you want to distinguish them from Ultramarines? If you want a reason to play Vulcan or Adrax,
because I'll tell you what,
you can't play them out of the Codex because the Ultramarines guys are all better.
Because I'll tell you what, the Space Marine Codex seems like Codex Space Marines Ultramarines. That's, if you're not playing Ultramarines, you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. You're just doing it suboptimally. You're doing it inefficiently.
And I think in 8th edition, where they had those divergent supplements, they some like Iron Hands were overtuned.
Yes. So that was the opposite sort of problem. Was everything had their own thing, but some things were just very clearly better. There was a different power level between them. It wasn't your army's rule is worse, but you have all these tools. It's no, my army's worse, and I have all the exact same units you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why would I do this? My relics might make up for it. No, they don't make up for it because they're just worse.
In fact, you just take the ones out of the regular codex.
Because they're better than your army's ones. There are the same weapons in the base codex as it is in your supplement, except they're better. Teeth of Terra, better than any melee weapon in any of the supplements.
Yep.
I had one called Oppressor's End, and it was okay, it replaces a combat knife. What does it do? It's strength 4, flat 3 damage.
Knife.
It's okay, what else you got? That's it.
Yep.
It gets 7 attacks because it gives you plus 2 or 3 attacks. But it was like, I'm still strength 4. I'm like strength 4. I'm AP 3 versus characters, 3 damage, but it's strength 4.
Yep.
Like, what does that do for me? No, just take the Teeth of Terra. 9 attacks, strength 10, AP 2, flat 3. Like, whatever it was. It was something absurd like that.
Yeah. So they did those, and then of course Iron Hands were egregious when they did theirs.
Well, it was a couple things. It was the character dreadnoughts. It was the stone that every vehicle nearby took reduced damage.
Yep.
Plus, you could heal. So basically, it was saying, hey, all of your vehicles have twice as much health, and all of your healing heals for twice as much.
Well, because they gave it a different rule word than the Tech Marine itself.
Right.
And then the character Pharaohs was a different kind of Tech Marine. So he could... So the
Iron Father, sir.
Yeah.
Tech Marine.
Yeah.
That's filth.
And then you could make a Dreadnought a character, and so he couldn't be targeted. And
and you could have specific dreadnoughts that had weapon loadouts that weren't available from the book because you brought a special dreadnought from Horus Heresy that could be loaded out with anything you wanted, and that could also be a character.
Yep.
This is like, oh my god,
yeah,
dumb.
But I'm wondering if, since they took their time on this, I wonder if it's like they probably feel as though Codex Space Marines is really Codex Ultramarines. Man, we're not seeing anybody flavor-wise playing White Scars, Salamanders, whatever, Imperial Fist. And so it's like, well, maybe they're going to try it again to see if they give them their own thing.
Maybe they'll...
And instead of just rules, give them like a specialist unit like Blood Angels have, like Dark Angels have.
Well, so that was what I was alluding to earlier. So we're coming back around to Horus Heresy and how Heresy is Marines. That's all it is.
Armies of Marines.
And so what we see every Thursday now that Horus Heresy Thursday's back. Heresy Thursday. There we go. The releases are, let's give every single chapter, Legion, whatever, a banner bearer of their own chapter. And it's boring. Sorry.
It is.
Space Marines on Space Marines is just boring. But what the interesting thing about them diverging from 40K with this more esoteric, stylized version of 30K is that the art style is very, very different.
It is.
Right? Like it's almost too different, honestly. Because it's like when you think about it, it's like, okay, so Heresy's got these Marines here in these super intricate armor with these cool, unique weapons that are all like, oh, they've got parts of them like that are hollow and stuff. You see all those swords, right, where they're like holes in them and stuff. It's like, okay, cool. Those existed back then. Shouldn't some of those still exist in 40K? Shouldn't some of this armor still exist in 40K if they're all so intricately carved and designed? Like,
that's a long time, though.
It is, but we still know that there are some of these suits of armor that are like venerated relics of the past, and it's like what they kind of ended up doing in order to expand 30K is like time jump forward but backwards, right? Like you see it happen in like sci-fi universes all the time. And then they're like, oh, Star Wars, we're going to do a prequel. And they go do the prequel. And in the prequel, the technology is 10 times more advanced than in the sequel. And it's like, how did the technology devolve from episode 3 to episode 4? Episode 4, they're living in trash cans. Yep. Episode 3, they've got like holograms and bullshit doing all this shit for them. It's just like it feels a little bit like that, where they're trying to expand Horus Heresy, but in doing so, they're kind of breaking the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, so while obviously you can always do the canonical Band-Aid and say,
all this stuff was destroyed,
technology's lost, and Heresy is supposed to take place after the Crusade, where the Imperium was unified,
right?
And so I remember reading a blurb, and this, by the way, I agree with everything you're saying. This is just, if I'm gonna devil's advocate here, I remember reading a blurb that Perturabo was having this conversation with himself, and Perturabo, the more they wrote about him, the more interesting he as a Primarch became to me. I was never an Iron Warriors fan, but he's just super fascinating. Anyway, he was like lamenting how he missed the days of the Crusade, not because he believed in his father's cause, but like the technology they had was always advancing, and it was like limitless what they could come up with. And so I think that's why you see the ornate stuff. It's not only the ornate thing not only gives it a sense of antiquity, But in their unified efforts, which the Heresy was immediately following, their technology was always scaling, whereas ever since then, they've been this fragmented mess where even 2 Space Marine chapters, let alone legions, can't even see eye to eye. They don't trust their own Mechanicum planets. They don't trust their own local guard regiment or whatever. And so it might just be harder. And they're probably poor. Like the Imperium's probably like deeply in debt and just can't afford the good stuff. Right. But except for Primaris, that's like the one sort of jump forward.
Right.
Even though the aesthetic is like almost more sterile than what we're seeing whenever they show these consoles now, or these new Praetors. Like the Iron Warriors Praetor was amazing. The Iron Hands one was amazing, right?
There was a Luna Wolves one.
Yeah,
that was all the Luna Wolves.
Yeah,
all the Sons of Horus, whatever, look amazing.
Yep,
I do like all of them because they always have like almost like wolf snouts, kind of that angular Mark IV pattern armor, like studs and spikes on like the helmet. I do like that whole design.
Yeah, and I think that was just at a time when like all their stuff progressed fast, right? So for if you think about like World War II, it was like the more involved the United States got when the Allied side started winning, you all of a sudden see the technology. I mean, the United States had the advantage of they were manufacturing everything here where nobody was attacking, right?
Right. Yeah.
And we put massive factories to work, but you can see in the last like year and a half, 2 years, it was like all of a sudden the Allied tech advanced like crazy really fast because we could. You're winning, and it's a unified effort, and lots of resources and money are being made, and they're pumping out every tank, every jeep, everything. Artillery piece just kept getting better, and so I think the Crusade was like that in the 30K setting where the technology just kept leaping because they were just winning.
Sure.
And so they have that going into the Heresy, but then they started losing it because you see all of a sudden the armor becomes more cobbled the longer the war goes on, and now we're in 40K where everything's fractured. So that could explain it.
I think it's a way you can explain it.
You can. And 10,000 years is a really long time.
Because like if you look at how they designed Horus Heresy stuff, even Betrayal of Calth and whatever, like there was nothing ornate about any of that shit. But like you said,
pretty vanilla.
Maybe it was the case where like, well, that's early in the war, the Horus Heresy. And then as it went on, they decided to get fancy with it as they're fighting each other. They're trying to style on each other.
Well, you have like when you have like the old guard, you have these guys, because in the Heresy now, every legion's like cutting their recruiting process to simply get more bodies. And so, and you even read it in some of the novels where it's like these recruits are all excited and eager for war, but they'll all of a sudden run into this captain who's been fighting now for 200 years. And it's like, it's such a different, they can't touch this 200-year veteran, but their stuff's all newer and shinier and whatever, they're eager. But it's plain. That 200-year-old captain, his stuff is really ornate because he's got trophies from whatever, and he's got a sword that came from a planet that's been blown up, and so he can't make it anymore. So it is different, but I can see what you're saying, because every Heresy Thursday now for like 6 months has just been, here's another character, here's another character, here's another character, and each one's more ornate than the one before.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I think it's the design team having fun.
It could be, yeah.
And they do want to differentiate those Marines from these Marines.
I think they've alleviated some of Forge World's load, too, because now that Forge World isn't just always making stuff for 40K,
right?
Now that they're just doing the special stuff, I think they can take their time and kind of get back to doing what you used to know them for, which is...
I think a lot of these characters are plastic, though, aren't they? Or are they resin?
I think some are resin.
Okay.
All the kits that go across the legions, like those Mechanicum ones, like whatever, those are plastic.
Do you think pretty much every one of these Praetors and Consuls is...
I think these Praetors are yeah.
Okay.
Because they've done Legion-specific ones. I think if it's generic, it might be.
Okay.
But I just think they're enjoying it that,
Yeah.
Legions Imperialis, they pumped so much stuff out that I think they're kind of just now going back to Heresy.
Yeah.
But...
It was so much. It was ridiculous.
But we really rabbit trailed off of the point that, like, well, Salamanders, that might hint that some of those other first founding ones might get touched separately in 40K.
Yep.
You might see Raven Guard, Iron Hands, whatever again. Or not. Or this is hinting that Vulcan might come back.
That's what I was kind of leaning towards. It's like, well, new Loyalist Primarch. I mean, yes, we just had Fulgrim, but... maybe a new Loyalist is coming.
Well, I mean, they did Lion right near Angron. like that. So
that's true.
And they
even fought.
Yeah, and they did Gilliman. Now they released 2 before Gilliman came out, but they still did them close. And I think he fought both.
Yeah,
I think
he definitely fought Mortarion.
Mortarion invaded Ultramar, and even though he wasn't supposed to, and now he's been kicked into Nurgle's Garden for who knows how long. And then on the way through the warp, I think he ran into Magnus, didn't he? So, and then Lion
and Scarbrand.
And probably, why not?
And Scarbrand got beaten by the Yinkarn.
Everybody beats Scarbrand. It's so annoying. And then
the one dude in orange armor beat the Mask of Slaanesh or whatever. Like it was. Oh man, what a story.
Yeah,
we don't talk about those stories.
But this could be. I think, I thought for sure Leman Russ would be the next one because he's one of the most popular. The Wolves have their own codex already. Yep, they always have.
Good point.
But Vulcan would be a twist, and what a cool model that would be in plastic. Because I think the Salamander aesthetic on its own is kind of neat. And why not take some of these chapters out on their own? Because Marines are never not going to be popular.
Well, it's also kind of gotten to the point where maybe in
no one's going to play them if they're just an Ultramarines book.
Maybe in 40K everything was Codex compliant. And these 5 chapters really obeyed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're 1,000 years on. The Maledictum has happened. Maybe some of these chapters are diverging from the Codex a little bit. And so we don't play by the rules of the Tacticus, the whatever, all like the
and they're
structure
separated, and
exactly
they don't keep in touch with them as much as they used to, and
so maybe we now see the Salamanders fight in a different way, and that they aren't using the Codex as strictly anymore.
And I think even Gilliman, this new version of him, isn't as adherent to it,
right?
His own Codex that he wrote, because this is like a new time calling for a new thing, right? Where he's appointing old positions back to guys like Dante and Cato Sicarius and where he's like, we're going to make you these like higher than chapter master characters. And I think he has to have swollen the Ultramarines to bigger with all the Primaris stuff, and then made successors from them. And so you're right. They might be, it's a new time. And so now these chapters are going to kind of divert.
Could be cool. And it could be cool to see an actual, aesthetic change too.
Yeah.
If you see Salamanders how a Chaos Space Marine, when they're in a specific legion, they start taking on aspects of that legion. Are you telling me that they went and they carved like bat wings to put onto their helmets as a Night Lord?
Right.
Or that they I'm going to drill a hole in my armor and put a spike through my pauldron. It's like, no, that shit happens, right?
Yeah.
That's mutations, it's warp gifts, it's whatever.
Yep.
That kind of makes them. You never see the transformation happen.
No.
But it's like, I'm a Chaos Marine. Let me go away for a while, and they come back and they're a Chaos Marine who's mutated, right? It's kind of like emotional and like self-image mutation that happens to a Space Marine. Well, I think it'd be really cool if you saw some of that kind of thing happen, right? So a Salamander Space Marine, being a Salamander for a while, all of a sudden they start getting bulkier. Maybe they're a little slower because they're bulked up more because they're used to carrying around heavy weapons and flamethrowers and stuff. But like no one's making them new armor.
No,
that's bulkier, but they just happen to be getting bulkier.
But then even between battles, when they're like repairing their armor, that nature of Vulcan, the Forge Master,
right?
They start crafting these artisan patterns into their armor.
Yeah.
Like he would. And so
just like casually, just like twirling your hair instead, you're just like etching a pattern into your armor between battles.
Well, and all of a sudden they meet up with another chapter at a battle 100 years later, and it's like their armor looks different now than regular.
You got Raven Guard, maybe they're sleeker, more lean. Yeah. Maybe they have more cloaks, maybe they've got more shrouds and hoods.
Maybe they carry around more smoke grenades than most, or whatever.
And then they start, behaving a little differently than Space Marines, and that ends up, being a visual difference as well as a performance difference and a play style, like a war style difference. We could have all kinds of stuff like that.
And they might that now. What I don't think that means is that in 10th edition they're going to do all of them, but
they could though.
But they could, because
we've seen, like we said, we saw right here. It was 3 Space Marines. It was Grey Knights. It was very clearly a Grey Knights because it had like the knee pad with the whatever terminus on it,
Mhm.
and then
Black
we had
Templars.
we had the Salamanders, and then we had
Black Templars.
Black Templars, which is technically supposed to be a Codex compliant chapter, minus the fact that they don't use librarians.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say Salamanders diverges. I mean, it's
Well,
almost one of those chapters that is unique enough, like a Blood Angel, that they could have had their own.
Well,
a long time
that's
ago.
what I'm saying. But the other ones like Raven Guard, Imperial Fist, Iron Hands, like I don't think in 10th they might necessarily get there,
Right.
but they could easily every edition like
Do a new
make
one.
them divergent.
Yeah.
And
I think White Scars would be a great candidate for this.
Yeah.
Unique kits and playstyle, because they do kind of operate differently. There are a lot of like mechanized.
I think they
lot
still
of bikes
have,
and stuff.
I
you
could
know?
be wrong, but I thought they still maybe had functioning jet bikes in their chapter.
Bring back the you cut the land speeder, but bring back speeders for them.
Yep.
Bring back the javelin jet bikes for them, and that's their thing.
Give them unique, and
You
the
know?
Salamanders could have that some elite Gravis hammer wielding.
You could have
Flamethrower
You could
guard.
have Terminators that are like Uber Terminators, flame purging Terminators. You could have custom Centurions. You could go like heavy Forge, lead into the Forge with them. I think that'd be super cool.
And even if they just did like one unique dual kit to make the chapter separate, because like I mean, Blood Angels and Dark Angels and Space Wolves in particular, those three have had their own jam since 2nd edition. So they've really been fleshed out over the long term. But this could be the start.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No one. Space Wolves is the only one that has Thunderwolf cavalry. No, I'm just kidding.
Blood Angels have Death Company.
They're so they're so unique.
and it's like they could like now they could just start trickling out these chapters and turn Codex Space Marines after a while to Ultramarines, and then like and that Codex could still let you, if you wanted to make your own, whatever, but they could over time just start gradually making these chapters more unique, their own, give you a reason to play them.
Yeah, I
again.
mean, look at
because the only
I guess
other
Horsehair-
option is if they specifically took the characters in Codex Space Marines and jacked up their rules. Like
Right.
otherwise, you just have no reason to play them.
Right. And they've done a little bit of that. They actually did a little bit in this last update, is they gave each one of the chapter master level characters of every chapter an additional benefit. Like I know Shrike's he gave Assault Marines with jump packs OC2 instead of OC1, just by being in the army together. I was like, okay, that's a pretty huge
It is.
benefit for bringing him.
The issue is like I still don't think you'd choose that if you could play Marnius and
I
Gilliman.
agree.
Like
Yep, I
it's
agree.
like- yeah, because you only have access to the same units right now. You don't have a specialist Raven Guard unit yet.
Yep.
But
They'll be the first ones to get Reavers with lightning claws.
that would be amazing.
And they would be awful.
they'd
Because
probably be
lightning
bad.
claws are awful.
They would make them
Strength
strength 4,
4.
reroll a wound or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Reroll one's the wound or something. Something stupid like that. Yeah.
And then they'd have dual lightning claws so they couldn't use a pistol, but they would have really good pistols for some reason.
That'd be funny. Yeah, we'll see. Well, we did see artwork of that exact thing, though. That's why I'm bringing it up, because there were, I believe, Raven Guard patterned Reavers, and one of them is like talking on a comms, and he very clearly has a lightning claw attached to his
why not?
forearm. Super cool. I mean, to the point where like if I was more motivated to do my Space Marines, I might figure out a way to do lightning claws retracted into the forearms of my Reavers instead of having combat knives.
But could you make Raven Guard rat ogres? 'Cause if anything can be a rat ogre.
Man, that would be a challenge. I think that'd be hilarious. You armor up a rat ogre and you give him like a giant beaky helmet.
Giant beaky helmet
That'd
and
be-
an emo cut.
That'd be
and
really funny. Oh man, now we're twisting it. We're really blurring the lines there.
Yeah. As far as I know a friend of ours is currently at the LVO, but she has been.
Well, we also really didn't lock down this time slot that we're recording, and so she wanted to join us for this for a little while, but it didn't pan.
But she did express kind of what we suspected, and maybe we'll get some pictures on our social media up. There's so much more going on there now than just tournaments.
Yep, which is great.
Especially in like a for anyone who's familiar with the Conquest game by Parabellum, if you go to their Instagram or probably Facebook. I don't have Facebook, but I'm assuming they post there. They were showing that they were stationed in one of the halls, and you could come by there and just like a vendor at anything, and you could shop, and then their tournaments are there. But the biggest thing is it sounds like there's just a host of classes. If you want to sign up for painting classes from artists or vendors, like LVO has tons of that now. I think they have various painting competitions there. And then now some of these celebrity personalities have been showing up.
Yeah.
So I know our friend who's there, Dracoya, you can visit her page if she posts it. She's in painting classes, like multiple painting classes. So yeah, just glad to see that more of these are turning into that. And even the company-specific ones, when even we talked about that already.
Like I said, it makes me want to go to it now.
Yeah.
Because like I really have no interest in going to Bug Eater. I have no interest in going to Mid-Mo, which are just tournaments. I mean, if you want to play a tournament, they're great tournaments.
They are. Well run. Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to go to conventions.
So do I.
If I'm going to take time to go somewhere and travel, I want there to be more than just playing. I mean, it's the same thing with the bigger ones like Adepticon, right? I want to do more than just play. I'll play, but I want to do other things. LVO becoming a true convention, phenomenal to me.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like I'm looking at my clock being like, or when can I, next year can I make time to go to it? Like,
well, and the fact that it's they've moved it into a bigger venue always gives you that possibility. And Vegas has no shortage of venues if they have to keep moving around. So, and
usually Vegas is cheap to get to.
Almost every airport goes there.
There's a lot of direct flights that are pretty cheap.
And right now it's not like summertime, but it's like 50, 60 degrees, which depending on where you live would feel awesome.
Yep.
And so
I think people can universally agree that 50 to 60 degrees is pretty comfortable.
Yep. And if you were anywhere else in the country besides maybe southern Florida or Arizona, you get times of the year where it's like, man, I want to get out of this. And so to have that in January, I feel like that'd be a great way to kick off the year for people. I hope more people do go, and I hope they do embrace the convention side of it.
Yeah.
Because your tournament's not going anywhere. I mean, look at the turnouts for those this year, bigger than they've ever been. And now you got all these classes and painting competitions.
1,000 people.
Yeah, and you've got vendors there selling stuff, and you've got... It's like, yeah, that sounds like more now I would be interested.
I hope they stress tested their tournament software before this to make sure it could handle doing the pairings and the rankings for 1,000 people. Because that's something where I feel like if you came up with an app or something, you wouldn't think about the limit, how high it can go. And so you get there, you're like, how many people signed up and how many people were here registered? Let's hope the pairings work.
Well, so, and it's funny, is usually tabletop wargaming has a cap in most tournaments, and I just think at LVO they don't.
Yeah.
And 1,000 players, you are now talking, that's like at the higher end of what Magic the Gathering GPs used to be.
Right.
So that's an open, anybody can show up and play event for cash prize, and you'd get 1,000 people. This is a Warhammer tournament.
Right.
Like, that's insane. Even the 300 in AOS is huge because most tournaments... Even 40K will cap at like 256. There's 300 plus players, and I have to imagine there were no shows, right?
Yeah.
And they still got 300 plus. Like,
crazy.
Yikes!
Crazy. I love it though.
Yeah,
it's
love it.
Exciting to see.
Yeah, good sign for 2025 that your first big event like that of the year has got record numbers and more people going who aren't even playing.
Right.
And they were streaming some matches on Twitch, and during that stream, the commentators even said like, even if you're not here to play, there's all this stuff to do, and they were listing stuff to do. It's like,
go gamble.
Plus, you're in Vegas. Yeah.
Go see a show. Go to a questionably cheap buffet and have some all-you-can-eat crab legs.
Questionably, yeah.
And just a pan steak.
Yep.
The pan, and not as like a cast iron. I mean, it's been sitting in the like buffet chafing dish.
The hotel pan?
Yeah, the hotel pan for a while.
Yeah.
It's just, comfortably, a comfortable gray, a very homogeneous texture, gray all the way through.
It's like if you painted it Gorthor brown and highlighted it with a red gray. Yeah. That's about where you get.
Yeah. Disgusting. I've been there, had it. Don't try seafood Newburgh from a buffet for the first time.
No.
By the way, don't do that. Seafood plus cream doesn't usually work out great. Especially not when it's lukewarm and just completely covered in salmonella. So
salmonella's not something that's caught on. That's
it's
a good addition.
Not trending yet.
No.
But speaking of buffets, I could definitely eat.
Sans salmonella.
Yeah, obviously. Is there any Golden Corrals around here?
I don't know. We could find.
Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed. Follow us for more of our weekly episodes on YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. You can follow myself and Llama on Instagram. We are at Llama Paints Minis and Hyena Paints Minis. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. And as always, we'll catch you next time.